And I'm on the wrong camera, but that's okay. It's always a good way to start the show. It's kind of par for the course around here. Try not to keep it too serious. Welcome, everybody. It's the Yard Sign, the most important and relevant podcast in politics. I'm your host, as usual, most of the time, part of the time, Johnny Torres. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, as we do just about every Monday. And I would love to say every Monday, but we're working on that. Last Monday is the Young Republicans meeting, and so most of our cast is involved in that organization. And so we're still kind of working out the kinks to make sure that we can come to you weekly. But, 3 times a month isn't bad. We certainly don't want you to get sick of us. So we appreciate you for watching the show. Let me see here. Oh, there's my little graphic. Again, thanks so much for watching. We've got a great show and a guest coming up later. We have someone from the Trump campaign, actually Hispanic Outreach Director, the National Hispanic Outreach Director for the Trump campaign, joining us. I didn't think we were going to make it to the big time this quickly, but we're bringing in the big guests. That's just how awesome this show is. So thank you so much to everybody for watching. While they are consumed by their cell phones, let me go ahead and pipe up their cameras before I switch over to the main table with an empty seat tonight, but that's okay. We'll make up for it with our guest. As always, with us from left to right, Mr. Anibal Cabrera. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. It's been a great day. I'm up 1 pound, so I'm a little upset about that.
You went. Oh, I thought you were.
It's water weight. It's water weight.
I was. What do you mean?
You were down last week.
I was down last week. It was
supposed to be more down.
I was trying to get more down, and today I was up a pound, and I got super depressed, and I was ready to go straight ham on a pizza. And I decided not to.
There you go. Good man.
Good decisions.
Yeah.
I cried a little bit in the car, but good decisions.
And sitting to his right, the sexiest man in Florida politics podcasting, it's Jake Hoffman. What's up, buddy?
Not much. I don't know how much competition I have for that. I think is it just the three of us?
Just own the title, man.
I will.
Don't dig too deep.
This right now?
I know. Don't dig too deep into it.
Don't
Just
dig
accept
deep
it. Just embrace it.
I will embrace it.
So pretty.
Unfortunately, no ladies on the show today. Something we're still working on. As Republicans, we're working on this. We're working on the lady thing. No, they're all very busy with their careers, as they should be, and making sandwiches. So it's unfortunate that they're not able to join us here today. Yes, we're live.
Are you sure we're live on Facebook?
Why are we? Oh, come on! Don't give me that.
I'm not. We're not live on.
Are you gonna make me? What?
We're not live on T-Boy Air. I don't see us.
Oh my God! Hang on. Oh damn it! All right, you're right.
Did we go live at all? Are we live on the Yard
Yes,
Sign?
Well, look. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and hit live, and we've been live. We've actually been live on YouTube the whole time.
But
Yes.
So
do we have watchers on YouTube?
we've got like 10.
Okay, just want to make sure.
So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and I'll replace the YouTube video with the live video, and
You don't want to.
We'll do the swap.
Cut it and start over.
No, why? The intro was great.
That no one saw.
The beginning of the show was great. I don't want to mess it up. It was such a good intro.
Was it?
We're on. We're tagged. Everything's
But
tagged.
they'll take our word for it.
Is that what we all agreed on? It was a great intro.
We were officially agreed upon that.
Was it not?
Yeah, it was a great
intro.
I mean,
was good.
There were some comments.
Oh, my hair. My hair looks good right now.
Let's just say I'm happy with it, and I didn't want to stop the show.
Of course, you would be happy with it.
Do you want to go and go over the topics then for today?
Well, yeah. So let me reset the show here, and again, Facebook. Sorry, I forgot. I thought I hit the button, didn't hit the button. So now we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Welcome to the Yard Sign, everybody. We appreciate you for watching the most important and relevant podcast in Florida politics. And real quick, those two sexy men over there, that's Anibal Cabrera and Jake Hoffman. As always, no ladies on the show today, but when you get the full version of the show, you'll know why. So, all right. Big news, though. We have the National Hispanic Outreach Director for the Trump campaign here in town. Yep, that's right. Big guests live in our studio, too, which is pretty cool. And so we're excited to have him on. He's going to come on later on in the show to talk to us about not only how they plan to win a Hispanic vote in 2020, but also the Trump moving to Florida, the jobs report. I mean, lots of great news coming out this week, including the Nationals' visit to the White House, which is also making big news for a variety of reasons, which I'm sure you can understand.
Oh, congrats to the Nationals, by the way. Trey Turner from Palm Beach County, Park Vista High School.
Is he really?
Now a world champion.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Well, look at that. Florida winning in more ways than one.
that's right.
We're always winning.
All right. So our topics for today, the impeachment vote. We're going to start off strong with the impeachment vote. Not that there's a whole lot to talk about, but of course it's still relevant, being that it's still out there. The NCAA deciding to finally pay college athletes. We'll discuss a very, very complicated process there, and and who's going to win, who's going to lose in that situation. No, that is a telemarketer, which I will not answer right now. We also got the Dem Primary coming up. We'll do updates on that because big news this week, if you missed it, on the Dem Primary. And so thank you again for watching the Yard Sign because there's a lot to talk about today. And so, again, unfortunately, we are missing the ladies of the show today, but we will certainly continue to make every effort to get them on to the next show. And as I said, we've got Helder Toste. Did I say that right? Yeah. Toast or Toste? Toste. Yeah. So he's already in the room, ready to go. We're going to be talking Trump, jobs report, Trump moving to Florida, and some 2020 election stuff. So we'll see how much insight we can get out of him while he's here. Back over to the main table, and let's go ahead and start with the impeachment vote. I don't know. Pelosi, I think, is still signaling that there's not much there. That they don't. What do you guys?
no. I'm just. hold on. It's like.
Wait, it's right.
Oh, because now you can see the graphics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. We're good.
We're
now.
fancy, man. Like that's how you get national guests, like Helder Toste.
That's right. That's right.
Is with fancy graphics.
Now that you can say his name properly, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Well,
so
it
all right,
helps.
impeachment, guys. We are there. The big news is that there's actually going to go to a vote, or actually did go to a vote on Friday. And I mean, that is big news because now there's no longer a process that's happening behind closed doors. At least there's going to be there was a vote out in public. And they have the votes to move forward with impeachment. So I mean, we're going to be now facing even more of a circus, but now it's a public circus, and it's going to look really similar, I think, to what the whole Russia Mueller report investigation looked like. It's going to be a lot of political circus, really. I think you're going to see people acting on one side and acting on the other side, and then it's completely partisan. 2 votes from Democrats to not impeach out of every House member. So we're looking at as partisan of a divide as ever. I think we can talk a little bit about how you think it's going to affect everything moving forward, because we're going to see an impeachment of our president.
So a lot of things to correct in what you said in regards to the
Jesus.
Okay.
No, in regards to the impeachment, yes, the House has moved forward in regards to starting the process of the inquiry for the impeachment. So that's one.
Yes.
Number 2, in regards to the past, the 1974, almost the entire House voted for the Nixon impeachment, which was, I believe, 404 to 4.
Yeah.
And 410 to 4. And then even with the Democrats for Bill Clinton, 31 Democrats broke rank and voted for impeachment for the president at that time also. So just to see just 2 Democrats break rank and vote, not vote for it, was spectacular. It was completely down political lines, which shows you more evidence that this is very much political hay that's being made.
Yeah.
And to see the kind of and I love using this phrase, the kabuki theater that we're going to be watching. People crying.
I love using this phrase that nobody has any idea what I'm
no
talking
one
about.
knows what that means.
I have no idea
This
what you're
allows
talking
the
about.
kids to figure out what this means so they can Google it later on.
Part of me thinks it's probably really inappropriate.
No,
but I'm gonna let
it's
you keep
not.
saying it.
It kind of sounds. Never mind. Okay, so
You can Google it without there being ramifications to your history.
All right,
So
all right.
that's not a problem. But again, you're going to see people crying, people very upset because they're having to make this historic vote. And the more they talk about it, the more it's going to push more independents, Republicans, and even right-leaning Democrats towards the side of the president. Because no one's talking policy. No one's talking about what's happening with the economy or anything. They're just talking about impeachment. And the fact that we're now in November.
yeah.
Just now it took 6 weeks for her to get the votes.
I think what's going to be really frustrating about this is all of the things that aren't going to get done now between now and the election. I mean,
gonna piss
there's
everyone
going
off.
to be. There's going to be nothing. Nothing is going to get passed. I mean, nothing already was getting passed. Congress already moves slow enough as it is. But if this is going to be your sole focus, I mean, nothing important is going to get passed. I mean, and this is not why we elect all the officials to go up there, is to sit up there and just kind of jab at each other and get nothing done. Like, we want them to pass things. And there's things that, I am really upset that I came here to start this show today at 6 p.m. and it was dark. And we voted as a state.
It was more like 7 p.m. But
it was dark, but it was dark at 6 p.m. That was my point, is that it's dark at 6 p.m. now, and we decided as a state we're no longer going to put up with this nonsense of daylight savings time. And it's stuck in Congress.
Nonsense.
It is nonsense.
It's not nonsense. We were all given an extra hour to go drinking on Saturday.
That
you didn't
not
feel that
account.
Addition to the neat necessity of blowing off steam over the weekend?
First off, no, because Halloween was on Thursday night, and so that was irrelevant at that point. And so the point is, though, is that in Florida we voted for something, and now it's stuck in Congress, probably for another year. And it's like now now it's dark every day at 6 p.m. And that's ridiculous.
To be honest, I don't think it's going to pass at all. I mean, obviously there is support from other states and other senators and congressmen who've kind of lined up behind this bill, but I don't think
it's going to pass.
Pun intended. I don't think it's going to see the light of day.
Woo!
All right. Well, the point is that Congress isn't going to get anything done. I have my own feelings on daylight savings time.
Back
you
to
have very
impeachment.
strong, yeah.
Oh, I have stronger opinions on daylight savings time than I do on impeachment.
I think everyone has stronger opinions on other things than impeachment.
Yeah.
It's becoming nothing but a circus every single day. You have it. And then you can really see the partisanship when it comes to the media of them talking about, it was just a bunch of when the Republicans stormed the secret hearings. And then every media
outlet.
Which is
also political theater,
of
right?
course, but they have to do that now.
Yeah.
For them
but
to
I've
be
been
able to
saying
show
this
that.
since day one. This is a ploy to move the needle in the elections. All right. And honestly, I think they're looking at their numbers and they're realizing that even something as serious as impeachment is not going to move the needle enough to give them a win in the presidential election. And so, like you said, this is all theater. It's been political theater since day one. It's not going to go anywhere. And I'm willing to bet that he is not going to be impeached.
Well, I don't think he's going to actually be removed from office. That's for sure. And I think that one of the things.
Well, they don't have the votes in the Senate, period. So he's never going to see a full impeachment.
But what I think they're going to get to do is the same thing they did to Brett Kavanaugh, right? They're going to be able to march out a bunch of witnesses, and different people that they call on to talk poorly about the president. I mean, that's what's going to happen. And then they're gonna come out and they're gonna show the American people for week after week, while they do these investigations and while they do these, cross examinations and stuff like that. And all it is it's just more slamming on the president for the next 6 months, 8 months before the election.
But that hurts them. We saw the ramifications of the midterm elections.
They also don't learn.
But I agree. The midterm elections were supposed to be a much bigger wave for the Democrats.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that big of a wave at all because of the anger that was stewed because of the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen, and I agree with you, they're gonna try to do the same thing. But again, we've seen this in history. Bill Clinton was impeached, still won a second term, and everything was everyone forgot about it after 3 days into the new election cycle. So this is just gearing up to that kind of conversation of you've been talking about impeachment forever. You couldn't get there because you didn't have any evidence on something that we already know happened. Everyone sees the transcripts. Everyone's read it through already. No one cares. And this is becoming a bigger and less of an issue every single week as it progresses.
Well, my point was, and this is to answer actually Hector's question in the comments section, which is what else do the Democrats have up their sleeve? And the truth is, I don't think they have anything else up their sleeve. I mean, they are literally in the deepest end of the pool, and none of their candidates right now are polling with the ability to beat President Trump.
Well, they're definitely the deep end of the pool, that's for sure. I mean, they're 100% in on this impeachment thing, and they're 100%. But the thing is, I think what they have is they are going to have what they consider is a reputable people coming out and testifying on their behalf, people part of the intelligence community and whatnot, and they're hoping that those people come out with testimony that persuades the American people come election time that President Trump is not fit for the office. It's not about getting him actually removed. It's about continuing to just add bricks onto the vote for a Democrat in the next election.
Bringing his presidency into question. That's all they need to do.
But the problem with that statement that you're making is that you either want to, A, get him out of office so then you don't have to deal with him in the election, or damage him enough to where he cannot win a possible re-election. And the problem with that second scenario is by you damaging him in regards to the Ukraine, you damage Joe Biden. And you bring in the Biden situation. Well, no, Joe Biden raised $3 million last month.
Yeah.
It was pathetic of how small his fundraising was compared to everyone else.
Yeah.
And then you see what's happening with the second and third tier candidates, that they're not getting money either. Are anyone in Wall Street going to give money to Senator Warren?
I mean, they said no. They said
no one's gonna do
we
it.
are not going to give money to
and
her.
so it's going to get progressively worse. And so that's where it goes. You either, now you have a situation like, again, the reason why things don't stick onto Donald Trump, because he never lied to us saying that he was Mr. Perfect and Mr. Clean.
Yeah.
And that's what politicians do. They lie to us and say that they're perfect. They have perfect wives with perfect children. And you come to realize that child is not even biologically theirs.
I think the biggest earthquake in all of this, honestly, was Mark Zuckerberg and the leak coming out of Facebook saying that the last thing he wanted was Elizabeth Warren as president. And I think that really shook up Silicon Valley, because a lot of these startup guys and a lot of these other big tech giants are looking at themselves and saying, yeah, he's probably right. I mean, you didn't see a lot of burn back on Zuck from that, other than the typical liberal reaction from the fact that, they don't want anything to do with Elizabeth Warren in power.
Yeah, that's because, Zuckerberg over the past couple months has, I don't know, seen the light or something like that. I don't know what it was that got to him, but, it seems like he's been meeting with your conservative hosts and people that spend a lot of money on his platform, and then meeting with the president, and, it's turned into, maybe he realized a little bit on how, not just how powerful his platform is, but keeping integrity in his platform by allowing free speech. And that's kind of what he's going into. And then to go to the Elizabeth Warren thing, he's also, again, fearing getting broken up and then having some of his best assets taken away. They want to remove the acquisition of Instagram. They want to remove the acquisition of WhatsApp. If I'm Mark Zuckerberg, I'm looking at this and I'm voting red.
So you have to be a little bit careful when it comes to Warren, because I'm not remembering the name of the president that broke up Big Oil. If someone could do that research real quick, but he was brought in on a popular move of breaking the big oil barons, breaking the big railroads. They were the ones that broke up Carnegie and Rockefeller. And so we have to be a little bit careful, because those Rockefellers of our generation are the Zuckerbergs, the Apples, and that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, so
if you break them, and again, I don't think there's the anger as there was back then to do that. I think we don't have that kind of anger as it now.
So I'll break this down real quick, because I know I've talked about it a little bit on other podcasts. And so when I look at something like that, like you're talking about, I don't want to see monopolies either, right? Mm-hmm. And when you look at Facebook and you look at breaking them up in that type of sense, like what Elizabeth Warren's talking about doing, you're talking about a website right now, a social media platform that is a website that I can create another one tomorrow and compete with them. Now, when you have another entity like Google, right? Now, Google to me is much more of a monopoly, because you now have a search engine. They own the phone. They also own the browser. They also own the tech behind it, the software behind it. Your laptop comes, with Windows pre-installed and stuff like. I mean, that is your vertical integration all the way through the horizontal integration of your entire company. And so places like Google, there's probably, I can make a good argument that they should be broken up, but Facebook is a website, and in other countries it's not like that. They have started trying to get themselves into that world where they are the internet, but it's the internet, it's free, no one's forcing anyone to go on Facebook, and it's just not in the place right now to be broken up.
And that's where the argument comes into play. You are talking about a free service. You're not talking about oil. You're not talking about railroads, where those were large commodities. Yeah, those were necessities, and they were commodities. Whereas you can say, if you want, I mean, you can be on MySpace right now and be perfectly happy with that community, because you're only touching a certain amount of people. And so I think that's where the monopoly conversation comes into play. That, can you justify breaking up Facebook? No, I can justify Mark. I can justify
Google.
Google.
Yeah.
I can even justify a little bit of Apple to a sense, but I don't think I could justify
That's the
Facebook.
whole- yeah,
and
that's the
that's
whole
the
thing.
goal of Zuckerberg is to make sure like who's going to be the leadership in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And
All right.
that's who he's trying to have
And
those
Twitter,
dinners with.
and Twitter banned all
I
political
thought that was
advertising
that
as well.
was a great idea.
No, I think it's a terrible idea.
No, I think it's a great idea because
What, to
what's-
break them up or
no, to stop. I think Twitter did what needed to get done so that they don't get bullied
All
anymore.
right. Well, that's a whole nother issue. But hold
It is a
on.
whole nother
But
issue.
we were
It is.
because we were talking about impeachment, right? And obviously the impact that Zuckerberg had, I think, on the primary, and coming out against Warren, But to wrap up that monopoly topic, the truth is what all that happened, based on what you were saying, Anibal, is that when they broke up these huge oil conglomerates, these huge oil monopolies, right? They just turned into a lot more huge companies. So they didn't really essentially solve the problem, because if they were to break up Facebook right now you have Instagram and WhatsApp who are now all kind of orbiting, right, independently, and they're just going to get bigger to the extent that they're all going to be equally as maybe not equally as large as
actually.
Facebook,
Well,
but yeah, actually,
But
there's
Instagram
it's
is
a
bigger
potential.
than Facebook. I mean, like the reason why
Instagram is bigger than Facebook.
it is growing exponentially
I agree that
bigger.
it's growing.
And
I don't think it's bigger than
on,
Facebook.
Not
on
yet.
a worldwide user base, but if you look at the demographics of like your, let's say 13 to 28 or 30 or so, absolutely, they're all on Instagram.
Oh,
It's
I
way
don't
bigger.
doubt that at all.
So
but
when
I
you-
wouldn't say
so
that
that's how
Instagram is
quickly-
bigger than Facebook.
and so-
Also, to hit up on the
It's where their money comes from. I'll
yes.
tell you that.
However, to make the comment about why certain companies are broken up, it's more to do with power and influence and less to do with an actual monopoly taking over industry. And the
Yeah, but
reason-
now you're dealing with one. Right now, we're dealing with one monster. You break up WhatsApp and Instagram, now you've got three.
No, but that's the whole point of the
Well,
breaking
that's
up of
not-
the monopoly.
yeah, I'm not sure
is
that's
to
the
allow.
argument.
Yeah, is to allow to break up that power.
Yeah, but
then the
my point is they're going to
politicians
get
do not-
equally as big.
Politicians do not care about what's going on in regards to the actual reason why they're breaking a monopoly. Carnegie and Rockefeller were way too big of individuals, and the government had to step in to break them up. The moment you start, the moment that Zuckerberg is bigger than certain political people in his region, is when they're going to go after him and going to bring him down.
The reason why you should go after him is if for some reason he was if he acquired PayPal and then he acquired a browser like Google or something. I mean, like, again, it's currently a website.
Yes.
It is just a website. It is just a platform. They do not own the entirety of the space. And so, they're not. It's not the bandwidth. Okay, now maybe if Comcast or something buys them and then they start, skirting the bandwidth. I mean, that's what we have those problems with. But right now, that's not really an issue. I don't see it.
All right, so let's get back on track with today's topics. That was
a good run.
That was actually a really good one, even though we of
Passionate
course,
about
like usual, we got off the rails. But bringing it back to our list of today's topics, and again, coming up, Helder Toste. He is the National Hispanic Outreach Director for the Trump campaign and the Republican National Committee. He's going to be joining us later on in the show, so stick around for that. Thanks to my buddy John Dallas over in Orlando, who's running a big Trump group, sharing today's video. So we appreciate your support out in Orlando, and please subscribe, follow the show, send us your comments and your questions. The NCAA coming out surprisingly, and we're going to pick apart why, on the payment of college athletes. This is something that, especially I would say in the last 5 years or so, has been a huge topic of debate. And now all of a sudden they seem to have turned the corner pretty quickly on this. Let's start with Jake. Why do you think they've turned the corner on this?
Well, I can tell you exactly why they turned the corner on this. I mean, if you're a fan of college football or just like college sports in general, you hate the NCAA. I mean, right? Like, everybody hates the NCAA. Like, they're like villain number one.
Can't be put on another list.
I will get on the NCAA's list alongside of the China. If they're alongside of China, if they're alongside of the Chinese government and whoever else, Scientologists, that's right, that are banning us, I'm fine with that. The NCAA they're not a good organization. They're a corrupt organization, and they profit off of the bodies of young players.
Please, colleges profit off of the bodies of young athletes.
Well, exactly. But the NCAA is the regulatory body, right? And
but
I
the
don't like
colleges are the
regulatory
ones
bodies.
that are running this also. again, everyone is to blame on this. The greed of money altogether is causing the bigger problem that's happening right now. Do I think college students should be paid for their likeness and their intellectual? I don't even know if it's considered intellectual property.
So this is the thing.
Because I can think of an EA Sports situation where they allow for their likeness to be put in.
So that's right. That's where the argument is right now. Right. They can't make money off of anything. These athletes are in a bad position, right? Like you have to go work essentially like 100-hour-a-week job that you're not paid for. And
you're paid for.
You're not paid for it.
Oh,
you're not paid for it.
How much does college cost? Oh, so you're not getting a $50,000.
You're not. No, you're because it doesn't matter because if you go to school, you still need to pay rent. You still need to pay food. You might have a kid.
They're not paying for food. They're not paying for.
If you want anything besides the cafeteria,
yeah. Oh, have you been to FSU's athlete cafeteria?
So the point is,
those smoothies are amazing.
If you want to take your girlfriend out on a date. You don't have cash because you spend 100 hours working, and you make billions of dollars a year for these colleges, right? So the point is, you guys are on the wrong side of the NCAA debate.
Well, I'm not.
Right now.
I'm not.
No,
I'm all for it.
I'm not saying that I am for or against. I'm saying there's a larger conversation that needs to be had.
So here's the larger conversation, though, and why the NCAA has made this move all of a sudden is because California came out and said college athletes should be able to be paid.
Yeah, because they're going to pay taxes in California.
And the NCAA,
of course, California wants them to start getting paid so they can pay taxes on it.
But the NCAA,
because athletes pay an even higher percentage when it comes to taxation in California.
They do pay. I mean, taxation in California is a whole nother issue. but that is one of the big things that comes out of this is how they'll be taxed and if they'll be taxed and all that kind of stuff. Which it's a Pandora's box. It really is. But the NCAA jumped out in front of this because of the fact that California said you guys need to pay them. And they said, whoa, we're not going to pay them. We're just going to let them benefit off their likeness. And now that kind of removes the responsibility from them to pay them as employees because they are employees and they should be paid. And the amount of money that flows to these big programs and the amount of money that gets sent to your big recruits, it's insane. And if you just allowed them to benefit off the likeness, if you allowed them to have a shoe and give them a sponsorship and a part of the EA Sports deal and stuff like that, that's plenty of money to last them for 2 years.
And it doesn't even have to be that big. Honestly, if it's Bob's Auto Mart out here on Florida Avenue who wants to sponsor a USF player, then they should be able to make that deal.
It's not going to be there. It's going to be Nike and Adidas.
Yeah, but that's going to be that is going to be less than 1% of the top athletes in
already
college.
Less than 1%. Again, we are.
First off, it's not just the one.
It should be more about the education of the students. Honestly, that is the long-term wealth benefits.
Yeah, but you're not. But it's not dealing in reality. You're not dealing with the reality that a lot of these. Hold on, Anibal, because a lot of these students come in to the university and they already have kids or they're already starting families. And like Jake was, the point that Jake was trying to make is that aside from the fact that all their meals are taken care of, that they're actually given student housing, and that they're obviously being provided a good education, that's not real life. Real life is out there and having other expenses like a car and car insurance and child payments, right, for daycare and having to care for that kid. I mean, how often do you hear about these college students having 1-2 kids already, even while they're playing sports? And some of them, even from the time they were in high school, were already providing for their families. They were already working from the time they were 15, 16 years old, providing for their families, and they may be the only source of income for some of these families, and now they have no income.
The long-term benefits of a good education will carry these kids much longer because the average athletic...
But that's not reality.
It is reality because...
It's not reality because
average,
they have to support their families now.
The average student that is an athlete is going to, less than 1% make it to any farther than where they're going to be at right now?
Do we want to? I'm not saying. Look,
which is why they should cash on it while they're in college.
Which is going to be disincentivizing when it comes to education. What happens? What happens when a student is put on what's it called?
On the contrary, it's going to incentivize them to stay in school because now they have to make sure. Not only do they have to wait. Not only
we should let them go straight to the straight to professional. That's what that needs to happen.
And by the way, and that is again, this is the Pandora's
that should be an
box.
option too. If you have a LeBron, stop.
It's only allowed in basketball.
If you have exactly. If you have the skill set to play at the professional level like a LeBron, then why even bother going to college?
So this
go
right
to
the
pros. So the education carries them much farther.
Well, I can explain to you why this isn't happening because right now the NFL essentially has a D League in college athletics,
Yes.
right? They're able to train people and make sure that their product, when they come out, they have 2 years of scouting in front of them. They don't want to create a D League where they inherit the problems of taking kids out of high school and everything like that. It's a different sport than basketball. And so the college system is a good system if they can benefit off of their likeness and make money while they do it. Now, again, when you start to mess with like, okay, they should be able to come straight out of high school. There's no legal reason why they shouldn't. And actually, before he died, Oakland's owner, not Jerry Jones, I'm blanking right now, but Oakland Raiders owner Al Davis, before he died, he was going to start a lawsuit about this because he should have been able to, but he basically was talked out of it because he realized, well, like it's going to mess up everything for everybody, and they kind of talked him out of it. But right now, you need to be able to benefit off your likeness. If they sell a jersey with your name on it, any of us, if anybody here ever walked by a window and saw your name on the back of a jersey where someone was selling for $100 and there's a big picture of my face on it, like, I want a cut of that. Yeah. That's how it works. And so it's incredible to me that anybody doesn't think that they should benefit. Like, this is a free market thing. Like, they bring the value. They bring millions and millions of dollars every year. Like, they deserve a piece of it. And again, like Johnny was saying, is that they need to cash in on it while they can because only 1% make it. So I'd rather everybody get paid for 2 years and make some money off of it, and then if the NFL career doesn't work out, they at least made some money during that time because they gave their body up, and they're not getting health insurance for this. I mean, like, you know how many concussions they have?
Let's pull the scholarships from those athletes that are going to get paid. Let's make sure that money goes to other sports that we know
it's not going to be that much money.
It's going to be a lot of money. Do you know how much,
it's not.
How much money is thrown around in college football?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot of money.
And if you're Florida State, you're throwing around $20 million for a coach that you no longer employ.
Exactly. The amount.
But why that money would have been better off invested into the players.
Billions of dollars that are going to be talked about and given to these kids that, honestly, if you the amount of stories we're going to hear of kids wasting all of this time and money.
I think there are plenty of college kids that waste their money.
No, on the contrary, it behooves them to be a good student because they need to keep that endorsement money. They need to stay on track. They need to stay out of trouble, and they need to graduate so they can go pro.
Because we know,
so you're incentivizing.
We have plenty of stories that talk about students that are playing at the number one peaks, and they're still putting themselves in horrible situations.
Well, of course they do. Because they're 18 years old.
Why do you think so many?
Exactly.
No, but why do you think
money, this kind of money and attention to an 18-year-old?
Anibal, why do you think? Stop. Why do you think that these players go out there and rob stuff from supermarkets and department stores and things like that? Because they don't have the expendable income to go out and get the things that they want. They are barely given they're given the bare minimum they need to survive as a college student. And again, that's not reality.
Yeah, and again, and you talked about this earlier, not to put anybody on blast, but I think that, all of these colleges, they already have sponsors. Like, they've already got the sponsors on the walls, and then they've got the sponsors of the cars that you see the kids driving. Okay, like, this isn't like something new. This has been happening since the 60s and 70s.
Exactly.
With Bo Jackson's gold Trans Am.
That's why the argument's so annoying that people think that this isn't already happening.
Well, it's already happening.
And that's why
it needs to be
so
brought
funny
out.
That I agree with you. I would rather it be out in the public so that we can actually have these conversations. But to assume that these things are not happening in the background is foolish.
Well, of course it's happening, but that's why the NCAA comes out and then they take away people's eligibility. They take away they take away the kids' livelihood because they have to abide by their rules. They have to come in and they're telling them that, okay, you can or cannot hit this way, you can't do this, you can't do these substances while you're in college, or else you can't play, and they have a whole set of rules of how you're supposed to do abide your life. And if you're going to tell me how to do that, you pay me for it.
Again, this gives the power more to the advertisers and to those that are going to be paying these kids for their likeness over the NCAA and for colleges. Colleges are not going to like that. No, the organizations.
You know what?
Don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem with us having this conversation and seeing where we can get money to these kids. I have a problem that it's going to cause a lot more damage to these kids long term that are not going to be focusing on their education and more on how quickly they can make a buck out of it.
I think it's going to be the complete opposite.
I don't think so.
As far as the education point goes, I mean, your college athletes are doing one of two things. You've got your person that's there for 2 years to get in and get out and get into the NFL. They're not caring. They don't care about their education as it is, right? Because they know that they're gonna make it. They're gonna be part of that 1%.
No, then you have less than 1%.
Then you have the other 99% that do realize that, like, they do instill that in a lot of the kids, and like as much as they want to go play pro at some point, they know that that's probably not a reality, and they are focused on their degree and they are focused on all of those things. So like I think that people people like to, I think hate on the student athletes a lot more. They deserve a lot more credit than they get, and they do a lot more, and then they also bring the value. I mean, like, people like to say that athletes are overpaid. They're not overpaid. Like, the amount of mouths that are the amount of mouths that are fed underneath these athletes, they have no idea, and people have no idea. I mean, a college athletic program feeds so many people, it's insane. I mean, like, you've got your agents, you've got your sponsorship. Everybody that works for that company is partially making money off of those athletes. Your graphic designers, your video guys, your TV station. I mean, the amount of tentacles,
money that flows through college football and college athletes.
Well, the athletes
is
themselves,
tremendous, and I would rather us have an open conversation.
But I just want to make the point that these athletes.
This
bring
is
so
the
much
conversation.
value.
None of us have voting rights on the NCAA. No one is on a board right now.
Yeah, but they already voted
it.
None
of us are athletes.
No, I'm not on the board, but I mean, you can make it happen. I mean, because this is the thing. You're seeing it now. The reason why this has been being talked about for, I don't know, the last 15, 20 years pretty heavily. The reason why this happened is because California put political pressure on them, and if they get credit for doing something right, is that they passed a bill and they forced the NCAA to make a decision on this.
Yeah. All right, so real quick, Joe, our buddy Joe Wicker, who's been on the show, he says, well, we see players attempting to increase their public and online profile in addition to sports to increase their sponsorship value. And I think that's already happening.
Well, first off,
even
you're not
before
allowed
their
to.
conversation.
Yeah. You're not allowed to.
No,
I
but
mean,
but I'm
to
saying in
address
terms of their like being on Twitter, social media, that sort of thing. I think they're already doing that sort of thing.
So what I'll say is that, the NCAA just last year had a court case against them from a kicker from UCF. He had 1 million followers on YouTube. Reached out to him a couple times. We've done some stuff with him. I'm just saying. I mean, like, this is the world I live in. These athletes, they have 1 million followers on YouTube, which is more lucrative than any of the jobs that they would have got with their communications degree, which I have. So my point is that that they are not able to even benefit off that. They made him shut down his channel. They make the kids shut down the channels. So if you want to grow your brand, your likeness and stuff, again, this is going to be part of that Pandora's box that this opens, because they're going to have to come up with rules and regulations.
Because they see it as a threat.
Well, of course it's a threat, because the NCAA is a bunch of old people who are trying to hold on to a very small amount of power. Again, if the NCAA wants to ban us alongside of China and the Scientologists, they can go right ahead. We're making enemies on this show.
It's all about control, right? And they want to control all of the content that surrounds these players, these athletes. And so, and then, Joe adds, so who benefits more, large or small schools? And honestly, I think the initial impact is going to be on the larger schools. The larger schools have the most to benefit from it initially, because they already have the high level of visibility. I think where smaller schools are going to benefit is when they have standout players that kind of transcend the size of their school.
That are going to get poached and go to other big schools.
They're going to get transferred and they're going to get picked up. But there's immense value in raising their public profile.
I think you're
and like you said, once you reach that threshold that the NCAA isn't comfortable with, that's when they get involved and say, hey, you got to shut this down.
Well, and I think to answer Joe's question, the disparity between the big schools and the little schools is going to be even greater, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why would you go to UCF or USF necessarily and go if they don't have the same TV contracts, and you're not going to get the same amount of likes and followers and stuff like that which is what your monetary value is based off of if you're getting Adidas to sponsor you. So I think there's going to be a bigger disparity between the powerhouses and the smaller schools.
Instead of you thinking about the educational benefits of a particular school, you're now thinking about media markets.
Nobody was thinking about the educational benefits of Alabama.
Like, shots fired.
Shots fired. Shots fired. Alabama.
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next topic, which we're going to go slightly local. We'll go back to the national stuff again when our guest joins us, Helder Toste, National Hispanic Outreach Director for the Trump campaign. He's going to be joining us here for a few more topics, and the show's going by really quick today, so sorry. And so a lot to talk about, including the biggest news here locally. By the way, I think we might have Cesar Hernandez join us next week to talk about the very thing that I love to hate and hate to love, the ferry boat from Tampa to St. Pete. We're going to talk about that with him.
Stupid.
He's huge on transportation. He actually is. He works with one of the scooter companies, and he was a big proponent of and a big catalyst in bringing the scooters to downtown Tampa. And
I want my big man approved scooter. That's all I'm asking for.
And
I don't care if it's green or orange. I need a big man approved scooter.
And man, if I was excited about them coming to Tampa, I'm going to be so much more excited when they come to St. Pete. I think they're going to try to get them in St. Pete here by the end of the year. So I'm really excited about that. But the topic is the Westshore Exchange, which again, if any of you live in Tampa Bay or have traveled through Tampa Bay, the Westshore Exchange is honestly, they should sue whoever previously designed the Westshore Exchange.
Yeah.
Because it makes no sense on so many levels. It is quite it's quite disastrous and a sight to behold in its just mediocrity and lack of efficiency. But
And now that we're at and I'm sorry for cutting you off, but now that we're at those numbers, the original assessment of the FDOT was at $600 million about 3 years ago. Right now, it's sitting at $1.4 billion to make all of this look somewhat the same. What?
That's a bigger conversation about inflation.
Well, last 3 years hasn't that much inflation. Giving up 50%. We've had 50% inflation in 3 years. Do you understand how inflation works?
Look at the difference in the cost that the point that you're making.
That just means that they've increased the project from what originally was budgeted for.
That's
not that the dollar has increased 50%.
That's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take to get this project.
I'm not going to have this conversation with you.
That's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take to get this project off the ground.
No.
I mean, it's going to cost a lot.
They've expanded it even further than what they originally wanted to do, because originally they were just putting the transit station in that Westshore area, and now Governor Ron DeSantis made the comment that it's now included to $1.4 billion. Funding will be used to reconnection of the Interstate 275, State Road 60, Westshore, and the area interchanges for that area.
So this is the thing. One of the things I've talked about on this podcast before, and then in any sort of conversation I have about transportation around the Tampa Bay region, there are bottlenecks. Yes. There are two bottlenecks that are the major ones, right? There is the Westshore one that we're talking about, and then there's Malfunction Junction right downtown, right? So you've got those two. And for all of the other talks about ferries and about scooters and all those other and trains, which again, different conversation. But for all of those talks, you need to fix these bottlenecks, because if you do not fix these bottlenecks, you're going to continuously have this problem. And so we cannot continue to run 4 lanes of 70-mile-an-hour traffic into 1 lane of a 90 degree turn. You can't do that. You cannot do that.
So bad.
And so what's going to frustrate me though about this project, and this one's not as bad as the other one, is that if we don't do it right? So like if you get all these people that come in here and they complain that we're building it too big of a road, and they go, no, we can't knock down that tree. It provides shade for a duck, and so we can't, and so we can't make but seriously, because then that's what's gonna happen, and then all of a sudden we're gonna have.
But that's the argument that we keep on running into, is that everyone's upset that we should be moving this money into mass transit, and I'm thinking to myself, mass transit is not the conversation I want to have right now. I want to make sure, yes, I can get through Westshore, I can get through Malfunction Junction. Because if you deal with those, that deals with 80% of the traffic.
You got to fix you got to fix what you have first. And you know what? The part that's going to annoy me the most about this whole project is the fact that I bet you that they're not going to fix the fact that you're going from 4 lanes, I think 4 to 5 lanes, down to 1 lane to transition from 275 to the Veterans Expressway.
So,
which makes no sense on any planet.
So they say that the project will connect the Howard Franklin Bridge, the Courtney Campbell Bridge Causeway, and the Veterans Express, and also give you better access to the Tampa International Airport with additional general purposes and express lanes.
I just want FDOT to come over here and explain to me and draw me the lines and show me exactly what we're doing, because we should be running 4 lanes into 4 lanes. It should be one continuous road. Like Johnny said, we should not be splitting this up into 90-degree angles into 1 lane where you go 25 miles an hour. That's why we have bottlenecks.
The goal is to make it inefficient, so then you can get more appropriations 10 years from now.
So you mean so we can get stuck at the Westshore Mall or something?
And then get reappropriations to fix it 10 years from now again. And then, like, now we're turning into like a 40-year plan. Whoever designed this is a genius, because they're getting their budget increased every year or every few years. So it makes complete sense for them. But I will agree.
It's great. But one thing that's good, it's money coming back to Tampa, though. And it is money coming from the state.
But we literally just just
problem.
fixed 275, like 2
Fix is
years
fix,
ago.
Fix is a strong
We
word.
no longer have as massive construction projects as we did less than 5 years ago. I think the bigger problem is you're going to have those environmentalists and those people that are pushing for mass transit. They're going to want these dollars to go into other projects.
They got their all for transportation money that
They got
can
my
go
2
in-
cents.
They got your 2
not
cents.
that
Your cent
1.5 cents, because I don't see that half cents in my account. I don't see a decimal point after the cents. I get so upset. Where is this? You're taking 2 cents. You're not taking a cent and a half.
And I think that's all for the Westshore interchange.
I
Well,
get so upset with that.
all right. So Joe just adds, he goes, just imagine light rail construction everywhere in Tampa for the rest of our lives. And it's true. I mean, it took about a good 20 years, I think, for them to do the Metro Rail system down in Miami-Dade. And, honestly, what's sad is that it could have been kind of the shining example of mass transit in the South. But, the corruption down there is just so rampant that they continued to bilk all of the funds that were designated for the Metro Rail and put it towards other projects. And it took them 30 years to connect the Metro Rail system to Miami International
And now they
Airport.
have one rail that goes from the airport downtown. One single rail. It took them 30 years to do it.
I'm telling you,
And it goes to the beach.
I don't have any confidence whatsoever. A mass transit rail system in Hillsborough County will be the stupidest thing that could ever be done, and we're probably going to do it because they want to train, and they're going to want it. They're going to spend $700 million to buy the CXS train lines that's just going to go nowhere. And I think, again, if we can't get the trolley...
And again, it can be done
could
right.
be
It
done
can
so
be done
right.
right. It can be done right.
It
Like,
could
we're
be.
not against all of these other modes of transportation.
No.
It needs to be like a multimodal solution. But it's going to be done wrong.
It's going to be done
You just know it's gonna be
horribly
done
wrong.
And we can sit here and complain about it
I can complain about it. I'm perfectly happy
until
about
they
it.
put us in charge of the...
Well, this was a good transition.
Yeah.
Is it?
No, absolutely not.
To what?
Well, we did skip a topic, but it actually leads perfectly into our guest again, Helder Toste, who's going to be joining us in just a minute here. But National Hispanic Engagement Coordinator for Trump Victory. Before we don't want to get our guests in trouble on their first visit, so let's dig in real quick to the Democratic primary before he chimes in. Of course, the big news this week is two major campaigns putting out big news. One, Beto O'Rourke calling it quits.
What?
And I know, shocker.
What?
Of course, my graphic is still wrong here because I'm one man over here. All right, so and then the other
see the errors.
is Kamala Harris. Her campaign in major trouble, not too dissimilar from Joe Biden, who they've been burning through cash like it's nobody's business.
I'm loving
it's not their
those-
money.
I'm loving
but
those monthly reports on the
Biden is
financials.
running out of money
Loving
fast,
it.
and it's not coming in fast enough to replace it. And Kamala Harris also seeming to now be in quite a tailspin, and I think she may not make it to the end of the year. So, the truth of the question is it locked up? Is it going to be Bernie or Warren, or are we going to see Yang or Gabbard or one of these other kind of down the ticket folks make a run for it?
You forgot Buttigieg.
Oh,
is
Buttigieg,
also
that's
in that
right.
run. So I think right now it's Biden, Warren, the communist, and then from there, it's the Russian, and then the tech guy, and then the mayor.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, I don't know how much there is to report other than Beto O'Rourke. He tried to go out in a dying ball of flames where he set a bunch of crazy stuff that he wanted to do.
You don't tell people you're going to take their guns. You just let the government do it.
And then that's why he's out of the race a week later. So that's where we're at right now in the Democratic primary. They're too busy on impeachment right now to actually focus on their issues and nobody's learned anything anymore about their policies than they already knew 6 months ago before they started, right? So I mean, they're not focused on politics and not focused on any of that kind of stuff. So they're just playing a game right now. And
now the conspiracy theory that I love that lends to what you just said, Jake, is that Pelosi basically is pushing this impeachment business to early next year to basically pull, other than Mayor Buttigieg, but to pull Gabbard, to pull, even Booker, and to pull, it wouldn't affect Andrew Yang either, but basically these others who are a threat to Joe Biden, really, because let's be honest, that's who they're trying to protect. and pulling them out of the field into Congress, right, to deal with his impeachment stuff and giving him some room to breathe. What do you guys think?
Well, it makes sense if you want to get rid of the House members that are running at the moment. The governors are already out. The Buttigieg is the last kind of mayor that's in there right now. You're right; it doesn't affect Yang at all. Tulsi Gabbard has gotten her extra room to run now because she doesn't have to worry about kowtowing to the Democratic base, but that's going to hurt her in the primaries for the Democratic nomination. Again, the whole impeachment brings down Biden. I think it does elevate Warren, but when you're dealing with a woman that says she's a capitalist and then she's not a capitalist, and then you're dealing with an independent communist, I don't know where you go from there. But if that's the primary base for the Democrats, I can't wait to see this happen.
They're losing right now. So, end of story. We
Yeah,
can move on.
I really agree with that.
I
Don't
mean-
get me wrong. We could all love the Beto situation imploding. A Vanity Fair, I think we should all save that copy and put it on our walls.
It was you cannot come out, and I don't want my president to come out after day one and start
my
apologizing.
gosh. Oh my god, the
Get out of
apology
here.
tour.
Get out of here. I mean,
Become president and then apologize. That's what Obama did. That's what you should have done. You were again. That's not your real name. Beto is not your name. And this is a great segue.
Great transition. Great transition.
If the Hispanic votes are you.
All right. On that note, let's without having to get into cultural appropriation, which is a topic that I love. We again have a great guest joining us, someone who again has not only just a huge workload ahead of him, but someone who again I think is helping to move the party in the right direction. I had the privilege of being a part of this department about 4 or 5 years ago.
We get it.
And get what? I'm trying to build a narrative here, and we're excited to have him as kind of our first national guest on the show. But his name is Helder Toste. He's the National Hispanic Engagement Coordinator for Trump Victory, and that's the Trump's reelection campaign. So thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you all for having me.
Usually helps if you turn on if I turn on your mic.
Sorry, yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I think the big thing is his name is Francis. That's the single.
Yes.
It's the important thing. He's 4th generation Irish American.
Yeah.
That's my.
It's
bone
a
pick
whole
there.
other conversation which we've already had. So why don't we? Let's stay a little bit
I
focused.
don't know why people don't realize
Just-
as a Hispanic person, when you see Anglo-Saxon individuals like running amok and pretending to be Hispanics, that upsets an entire voter block that is constantly changing its ways. And I want, if you want to explain a little bit what happened over this weekend for the Hispanic vote in Hillsborough County.
Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing here, why you're in Hillsborough County, kind of like what your job entails, and then what you're seeing in general from the Hispanic vote on the Republican side.
Yeah, so I guess to kind of start things off, my name is Helder Toste. It doesn't seem like a Hispanic name. Totally get that. My mom is from Guadalajara, Mexico, Mexico, to say it right, and my dad's from Portugal. And I grew up on a dairy farm in California, so I know a lot about bad traffic. It's not a good thing. But I think, why are we here? I think this past weekend, we had Conga Caliente, biggest music festival, I think, in this, for sure, the Hillsborough area, one of the biggest in Florida. 60,000 people come. And, at the end of the day, the biggest next step forward for the party is how we're going to win, how we're going to do better in 2020 than we did before, is to just be out there talking to real people. And I think, anybody who came out, hung out, the weather was really awesome. People were having a really good time. And, if you compared our booth to the Democrat booth, it was totally night and day. They had two people sitting in the back. The most action they ever got is obviously the mayor of Tampa came, take a picture with them. Only time they got more than 2 people at the table. And we were just, line out the door, people taking pictures with the president, people getting our lit. We were talking in Spanish. We were really talking about a variety of Hispanic issues because the biggest thing Democrats like doing to our community is they treat us like one block.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Puerto Rican, Cuban, Dominican issues are not the same issues. Mexican American issues aren't the same issues.
Venezuela
and as a party,
issues? Oh my
they're
gosh.
not the same. Exactly. And so we have to be smarter about the way we're having real conversations with real Americans that either they're displaced because of communism, Hurricane Maria, or the 3rd generation Mexican American or Cuban American, and they're here to try to make their life better.
So what are you seeing then? We talked a little bit about before the show. Like, what are you seeing when you're having these conversations with all these different groups of people, which are all, like you said, lumped into Hispanic? one category. But what are you seeing from individual voting blocks, and what are you seeing from around the country in Tampa? If you see anything from here.
So I guess, the big things that we saw in Tampa, we had about 3 people that consistently came through to say bad things. But a lot of other people, they'd be having their Boricua caps and they'd give us a thumbs up. And
secretly too.
Secretly, it'd come out of the side. And, people are out there and they saw our booth. The people came over just to say thank you for being present.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, something that we're going to have to work on because we want to be more present. We want to be out in the community. I think what you're seeing is with the voter blocks is, okay, we were talking to a lot of Puerto Ricans. They're good for starting. Obviously, they're a very important group. 300,000 have moved into Florida since Hurricane Maria. But, what was happening all across this country, the state, was, Governor, Scott, now obviously Senator Scott, was meeting these people, telling them what resources were available, what they could do to make sure that, because these people are citizens, and making sure that they're a part of the country, that they're being taken care of, that FEMA's dealing with their insurance claims. All that was a huge part of what ultimately led to his success. I think Governor DeSantis, Lieutenant Governor Janet Nunez, same thing. They were out there talking to these people. And what we heard at the booth was people that were like, we thought the FEMA process was going to take a lot longer. The government and the president moved very quickly. We're good. Our homes, if they're in Ponce, they're coming back up. If they're, in San Juan, they're coming back up. The airports, everything's standardizing better.
Yeah.
And that's just them. We talked to Panamanians that, we're talking about, obviously, the canal situation. It's run by the Chinese. They're getting increasingly nervous. What role does the U.S. play with financial business internationally in Latin America? And they're next to Colombia, of course, next door, Venezuela. And so how are you going to, the Colombian Americans, they're worried about the fact that they have millions of Venezuelans that are displaced and want to be, at the end of the day, a lot of these people want to be in their home country.
Yeah.
And they just can't be because, one, socialist policies have pretty much destroyed these places.
Yeah.
And one of the saddest things I think is a case in point, in college I got to go, we had a dining hall. It was being run by a Venezuelan lady. She had practiced law for 35 years in Caracas and was running a dining hall in Connecticut because they were prosecuted by the government because they were educated, and they came after them. They came after the family, and then what happened? They left. And this family of 6 people trying to make ends meet in Connecticut, and we're talking about educated people that had real careers, real lives that were completely upended by what's happening. And so, I've been in Arizona, I've been in New Mexico, Texas. I'm running all over the country all the time. And what's been really eye-opening is I think people are feeling in a lot of ways that, President Trump is sort of the kind of hope and change candidate that they've been really wanting to see. We don't get enough credit for it, but we had a, more Hispanic vote for the president, Republican presidential candidate than the last few cycles. We went from, I think, 26, 27, 29. We want to make that 31, 32 even higher if we can. But, Rick Scott won 48% of the Hispanic vote in Florida. We've elected governors consistently, senators across this country with nearly 50% of the Hispanic vote. And, at the end of the day, what it's going to take is us having real conversations about the unique issues that face every community, because they are all very unique. And as long as we start treating people like real people and not like just a generic, racial block that you can kind of harass, these people are going to start saying that, I have a small business, or, I go to church every Sunday and I have a certain set of Christian values that I want to be able to espouse when I'm voting. And how we preserve that, and how we make sure as a party that we're going out there talking to people about where, we stand, because we stand with a lot of these groups.
Yeah.
Even today, the Trump administration just released a change to essentially, religious families adopting and, just something, adoption, as simple as adoption. There were bars made to what families could do as far as actually letting and adopting and all that process for churches and faith groups. All those things have been changing, and something as simple as adoption is being benefited by the religious community. And so making sure that we can keep growing all that, and making sure that we can build stronger families. That's a lot of what we're doing.
Are there any other specific policies that you see being key vote changing single issues that to some of those Hispanic communities? Maybe it's different between the different groups that coming up.
Yeah, I think so. We're working really hard in New Mexico, and people are like, "Why would you go to New Mexico?" The last time it was by Bush in 2004. But the second Beto O'Rourke said, "We're coming after your guns." The people in New Mexico were freaking out because this is rough and tough land. These people are out there. They're working in the energy sector. They obviously there's a lot of wilderness out there, but these people are really proud about being one of the most preeminent frontier states of the country. And when someone says, "You know what? Regardless of what you think, what your identity is as a people, as a state, we're going to come take that away from you." And that really scares people, because if this is what they've done for multiple generations and this part of their identity, they want to protect that. And so that's one of the big ones. The other one that's really resonating with people, it's the number one issue consistently for the Hispanic voter bloc, is education.
Yeah.
Homeschooling, charter schools, school choice. vouchers for low-income families, things that I think Florida's been doing a very good job.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody realizes that at all. I mean, like somebody brought it up after DeSantis got elected, right? And they said like, oh my God, like how did we get all of these African American communities and Hispanic communities and stuff like that? They all went and voted for DeSantis and like a Republican, and everyone's like going crazy, like why? And they're like, because my kid's school's good now. And I don't think people realize that the benefit that they've seen from some of these charter schools going in. And every time I go to an event or a political function of some sort, I mean, it's just people railing against the funding that's being removed from public schools and stuff like that. But there's very little talk about the impact that charter schools have had on these minority communities.
Well, look, and to that point, I mean, charter schools aren't perfect, but they are filling the gap where a lot of these county school districts are falling short. They can't build schools fast enough, and this is where charter schools have come in and they've said, hey, you know what, you have to jump through a lot more logistical hurdles to build a school in this neighborhood. Well, guess what, we can buy an office building and set up a charter school in that office building, and they have a lot more flexibility because they aren't necessarily beholden to the same rules. But real quick, I wanted to again get back to something that you mentioned a few times, Helder, and something that I think is just mind-blowing. By the way, Helder Toste joining us. He's the National Hispanic Engagement Director for Trump Victory, Trump's re-election campaign. And that is a poll that came out from the University of North Florida, so Jacksonville, and it shows Governor DeSantis with an 82% approval rating in the Hispanic community. That to me is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna like run for president and win soon, right?
Also, I don't see how Florida.
If he keeps it up, why not?
Yeah.
Also, I don't see how Florida will go blue in this coming cycle. Not to get into that kind of fray at the moment. I know you can't talk about certain things, but the fact that everyone is loving the governor, everyone's having okay relations with the senators, those are our three biggest tiers right now in the Florida politics. And if you can't move those political points, Florida is going to go back to red.
They're trying really hard, and like I'll read like the Tampa Bay Times or some other like newspaper or something like that, and they're like so pulling like something wrong. Like they're trying so hard to make DeSantis a bad guy and the Republicans up in the state like legislature are bad people, but they've done such a good job. They did a great job the last session. They're going to do a great job again, and it's resonating with Hispanic communities and with minority communities, and that's why you see a poll with 82% approval rating. I mean, like that sounds pretty realistic to me.
Yeah, and I think to speak about the DeSantis bit, it was a really tight governor's race. I knocked for a month doors in Broward County, and then came back down for the recount. And obviously we came with some really good wins, and we were really excited about that. But the thing that kind of walked away was for a race that was so close, the fact that when the DeSantis administration came in, got really, really popular, press, and very quickly, not just that, but started doing a lot of good things. It started immediately. We're talking about the Okeechobee, right?
Yeah.
Did I pronounce that right?
Okeechobee,
there we go. All right.
Yeah.
The dams, obviously, pretty much the environmental crisis that had been kind of building. He moved on that pretty quickly. A lot of up and down, especially the eastern coast of Florida, people really appreciated what was being done about the issue. And that was also a number one issue on voters. And I think that takes to the next thing is, well, how are we going to win in 2020? And at the end of the day, it's going to be all about the ground game. We already have, Florida, we already have, multiple staffers. We have thousands of trained volunteers. We're knocking doors, we're registering voters all across up and down the state. And I think going forward, the only way, the thing with Florida is you're getting millions and millions of new neighbors every few years.
Yeah.
And the only way, as a party, we're going to be prepared is to be talking to these neighbors. Figure out what they care about and what matters most to them.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the points that I try and drive home to a lot of different people about all these different groups is that it's like you don't win future elections and everything by ignoring entire groups and writing them off, right? Like it's having conversations with them and explaining to them why our policies are more beneficial to their communities. And I think a lot of the Hispanic ones, especially if they came from a socialist country, they get it.
I don't understand where the Democrats are coming to thinking that they're going to be able to hijack the Hispanic vote, because we know a lot of people that register Democrat because they're afraid that that's what they think they have to do. They have to vote Democrat as Hispanics, but they'll never vote for a Democrat in their entire lives. We've seen the statistics and the numbers that there's a lot of Hispanics out there that just will not vote for a Democrat. They'll always vote for the Republican. It's just trying to get them to change that voter registration, and that's the hardest thing to do with these people. But I understand.
Yeah.
It's that
well, it's
fear.
Also,
that kind of fear of they're coming from countries that the government was so overwhelming, so powerful, and then you come to the United States, which is the most powerful country in the world, and you think you have that. I understand. My grandparents
but it's
like
also what's lost in translation, because the fact is that most of them again have very broken little English, and the direct translation between Democratic Party, which means democracy, right? Like to them, that's a literal translation versus Republican Party, meaning republic and representation. You know, they again with that literal translation, I think that's also where we tend to lose some people. Yep. But my question for Helder. We've known. I mean, those of us who are on the right, who are conservative, who are Republican and Hispanic, we understand that, you know, they overblow the immigration issue, right, as a way to sway the Hispanic vote. It doesn't work. It's never worked. But where do you see room for improvement? Where are some of the areas you are seeing some pushback from on the people that you're talking to?
So I think that the biggest kind of, I guess if I'm reading the question right, the room for improvement, I think the number one issue we have in our community, and it's been, is just education. And I think we run with something as simple as, let's imagine you're an immigrant from Mexico, you're become a voter, but you're a panista, right? You're on the right wing of the Mexican spectrum. The colors there are blue and white. You know, you come over here, you're thinking, and then even my dad from the Portuguese background, the conservative Republican Party of Portugal uses blue and white Democratic Party colors. And you come over and you think a lot of it translates, and it doesn't. And if we're not out there in the community talking about, hey, you know what? Like, this is actually what we stand for. We stand for, you know, pro-life issues, for pro-economy, pro-opportunity, and letting you all live the American dream. And if we don't do that in English and bilingual,
oh my gosh.
in Spanish, Portuguese, you know, especially too in Florida, we have a huge growing Brazilian community as well.
Yep.
Just doing it in the most genuine, direct way possible. You're not able to win everyone. We know that. But as long as we're out there having real conversations about these sort of things, that's where we're going to see the growth. I think and as a sort of segue to the jobs report, we see a lot of really, really exciting things happening for the Hispanic community.
Oh, loving it.
I think that Anibal has been waiting to talk about the jobs report for hours. So John,
it's really awesome.
If you want to get rid of the Trump graphic and make it a jobs graphic, I think we're going to give Anibal his attic.
I loved the jobs report. I thought it was by far one of the most interesting ones just because of what occurred. I will say, though, right now, to kind of tie the two together, the joblessness rate for Hispanics hit an all-time low of 3.9% in September, while the African American maintained its lowest rate of 5.5. Hispanic women unemployment is 3.9, where black women is 4.6. I think these are some of the best numbers that we're seeing, and that's what's going to push the Trump agenda even further. When you have a job, when you're making more money than you were before, I think currently it's an extra $5,000 that people can feel in their pockets with this economy that's growing even further. And so a lot of people in the last month, and we're saying that, we're getting ready for recession, we're moving in that direction. But what really people did not realize is that you can't just say that and think it's just not going to go anywhere. And so people were expecting a horrible jobs report for October because of the strike that was happening in the GM. But what really happened, and I've been waiting, all day to be able to wear this hat because I don't have any gel in my hair, so I'm very happy to wear this hat. Is because so October's numbers came out last week, 185,000, and Trump made a comment where he's like, "Oh no, it was really 300 and something thousand in the job report," and people were really upset about that because they're like, "That's not true. It's really the 100 and it's actually 128,000. 128,000. What are you talking about?" I was like, "No, and you had to do the research." I know you're bored, Jake.
We lost 50% of our viewers.
I know you're bored. Put something shiny in front of Jake real quick, and we'll finish this real quick. But at it was the best part of it was the reconfiguration of numbers for the month of August and September, which added an additional 95,000 workers, and that's great for us moving into the Christmas holiday season of having that strong of a jobs report, which means that we will not be heading into recession. I don't think we'll be heading into recession in 2020. I think it's going to be a great year. We're going to see even better growth. But I think the Hispanic growth outreach and how figuring out to letting the Hispanics know and Black communities of how good it is right now, and to be proud of what they've done in their community that they've accomplished.
Yeah, so right now, to kind of just sum up some of those numbers, Latinas are the number one new job creators. Latino community as a whole, we've gone up, just since President Trump has been elected, there is a 1.5% increase in household ownership, which translates to 590,000 households now having a home, as opposed to renting, which is obviously an investment in their family's future. We're looking at things as simple as, if we just take that jobs total number and we times it times a salary of $32,000 a year, so whatever income, that's $4 billion coming into the economy. And that's not an insignificant number. And if you combine that with the fact that the president has been fighting tooth and nail for all the trade deals, USMCA, which the Democrats have not bothered talking about because they know at the end of the day they have to vote for this because it's the future for this country.
Yeah.
And it's the benefit, it's going to benefit the Hispanic communities that are living in Arizona, in Texas, New Mexico, California, Florida, of course, with all the ports. I mean, we know this is the right decision, and the Democrats don't want to talk about it because it's not convenient, because they're too busy talking about every other issue besides the economy, because the economy is doing too good. I think when you saw the media really talking and highlighting, oh, a recession's coming, 2% growth, blah, 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 we're still on track to get over 3 right now, as it is. The other thing that's happening is consumer confidence. You think the stock market, obviously it went through a correction, we know that, but it's looking great. It's moving in the right direction. I think at the end of the day, especially with the holidays coming, companies are hitting in the black earlier. Black Friday is iconic for that day, but companies are in the black sooner than
We're ready on Facebook by the 5th.
Yeah.
I mean, the ads are up. They're ready. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like,
and it's coming. We're already, I guess.
Well, even
3 weeks away.
Yeah, and even third quarter earnings season was phenomenal this cycle. So I think it was 150 companies were in the black compared to the ones that were in the red. So again, the fear of a recession which was being prompted by the media, because that's what they want. They want the economy to suffer, so then that makes Trump suffer.
Right, but the best part is when even they can't deny it, right? They can't deny the headline, and even CNN said, despite the GM strike, which of course they're going to count that, they're going to factor that in, even though officially they're still employed, they're just choosing not to work. The numbers were still fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's all pointing in the right direction. I mean, I don't know if we see any sort of major recession before the election. I don't think we're seeing it in the rest of the year, that's for sure. Not November, December. I don't want to. I'm not an economist, so I can even them. I feel like they're wrong all the time.
I mean, the number one thing really is if we support the president's trade agenda, which I think is a winning agenda, be it for agriculture, light industry, manufacturing. I think what you're going to see is, the numbers, they could really be much better if the trade was flowing at a much better rate, and so many people are going to benefit from it. I think the Japan deal in particular was great.
Yeah.
And in particular, a lot of people are nervous about China. The president is fighting them tooth and nail as it is. But the thing is, the better economic health we have on our continent, be it our hemisphere, that helps protect us from, whatever the heck China wants to do to hurt.
I'm the only one on this panel that's ever pushed the concept that technically the amount, I think it's less than 10% of the country's GDP is actually dictated by foreign exports. So yes, Europe is going into a recession right now. Hong Kong just slipped into one right now. China has been faking their numbers for years. So the world is allowed to go to hell in a handbasket, and does not really affect that much of the GDP when it comes to the United States.
One of the questions I would like to ask you, though, since we have you on the show, is about Puerto Rico specifically. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously they were hit by a hurricane. That was a big thing. A lot of people displaced, and then obviously then you have like the corruption with everything that's going on there, and what do you see happening specifically with Puerto Rico, and maybe policies that we can implement from a federal standpoint, or maybe a state out in Florida that help increase the, not just getting more votes from Puerto Ricans, but in helping that community out and ensuring that's more of a prosperous island.
Yeah, so I guess one of the big things is President Trump's administration gave the single largest federal aid assistance package ever to Puerto Rico in the history of the island since 1903, 4, something like that. And a large part of that had to do with Jennifer Gonzalez, who she's a statewide elected official that represents the island. She, at the end of the day, is essentially quarrels with and works with the Republicans very closely. She's admired, I think, just in general. Last year, she was here at Conga Caliente in Tampa, beating the drums and hanging out and dancing and just being with the Puerto Rican people. She's really emblematic of sort of, she's been, I would argue, the kind of one of the most stable political voices for the island for the past few years, when obviously a lot of things were going with the government. At the end of the day, I don't have a comment about that, but I do have a comment about the fact that Jennifer Gonzalez has been a really great voice for the island. And I think when you think about the Floridian side of things, the RNC last cycle we ran in Kissimmee, and we were here in Tampa as well. We were in Orlando. We were hosting Bienvenidos a Florida workshops. We were out there talking to people, giving them resources. And I think how you make the island more prosperous, first of all, we need to keep empowering the diaspora. That's a really, really big thing. A lot of people want to move back.
Yes.
I've been in New England. I've been out west. You meet Puerto Ricans. What do they say? This is fine, but I really just want to be on a beach in Ponce, right? Like, that's what I want. Or I want to be in San Juan. I want to be with my family. Like, I want to just be home.
Have we had any discussions on Florida purchasing Puerto Rico. This is something that I
No comment.
I was gonna say, why are we going? In my mind, like, can we annex it, or do we have to like purchase it out loud? I didn't want to have you go through that.
No, absolutely not.
We're not bringing it a state. We're not making it.
Well, I think that's the thing. Is self-determination, and I think ultimately is something that the Republican Party has been working very closely with the island about.
Yes.
I know that the Trump administration has been trying to figure out, a way to manage. I think the relationship with the island. I think of all our territories. I think we forget we have the Virgin Islands as well, and Guam, and that we have the Marianas and Samoa. I think Puerto Rico, because it has such a big population, the diaspora is very large, does play an outsourced role in I think the territorial versus U.S. relationships. And I think at the end of the day, the administration is going to do whatever it can to support them because they're citizens, the administration has acknowledged that. I think one of the biggest things we heard at the booth, and I'm going to go back to this, FEMA insurance payouts were within less than a year. They were 8 months to a year. And to be completely frank, even that is so much faster than you've seen in other disasters. I mean, be it hurricane damage from other hurricanes, still certain states haven't gotten the payouts yet, and we know a lot of that's just mismanagement from the previous administration and just trying to catch up. But I think the Trump administration, in particular Republicans, have been really well prepared the past few years to deal with natural disasters, to make sure that people, the housing, the electricity, energy, all these sort of basic things necessary to function are coming back very, very quickly. And so we're very proud about that.
The Hispanic vote, I feel this cycle is going to be something that I do think we're going to get above 30. I think we would even get closer to 40% in regards to the Hispanic vote voting for Trump, just because things are working so well within the Hispanic communities. Now, with other communities, I don't know what's going on with them as closely because I'm not in those communities. Yeah. But with the Hispanic vote, you hear many people that are registered Democrats that are so upset of what's happening right now with their candidates, so upset with what's being done with Donald Trump, and what they're hearing what's happening on CNN, but they're looking at their lives and they're like, this is nothing compared to what the media is saying. And so that disconnect is making it more difficult for Hispanics to vote or even want to go out to vote to begin with.
Yeah, and I think, on that topic, my mom, she's a very conservative Catholic Mexican woman. Would never vote for a Democrat in her life because she's pro-life. But I'm her son, and she'll call me, hey, so I don't think this is true, but Jorge Ramos on Univision said, and I'm like, Mom, like it's not. You can't listen to Jorge. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's obviously part of the media establishment that's trying to defeat the party and defeat our incredible, I think, forward movement for this country.
Well, and I've been saying for years that he's no longer even a journalist. He's now become an activist who happens to have media as a platform. But to me, he's no different than any other liberal out there with YouTube or Facebook as a platform. He just has a major television news network at his behest.
But what do we have on the Hispanic side, for the conservative Hispanic side? Like, I don't really see someone on our side being able to have that kind of influence in the Spanish community to be able to be a counterbalance to him. Like,
I'm right here, bro. No. Let's go.
I'm moving on from that topic.
I think that's a good way to end this.
So, Trump moving to Florida.
Yes.
That's right. Well, as somebody who grew up in Palm Beach, we
bring my graphic back up.
We are very familiar with Donald Trump. Before the presidency, most people were not that big of a fan for a lot of the random stuff that he decided to do to the county, the flagpole. But we're happy to have him. Of course, he decided to make his residence Florida. I mean, he said it himself in his tweet. I mean, like, his taxes in New York are terrible. Yeah. The politicians have stopped playing ball with him because he's the president and everything now. I mean, who knows what was going on beforehand? I won't comment on that. But clearly it was everything was beneficial enough for him to stay there. Now it's no longer like that, and so it's like he comes to a much more business, what's the word I'm looking for? For a business friendly state, and a business friendly climate. And so, I mean, I think it's a great statement by our president. It's just nothing but fantastic things for Florida, for Palm Beach, and He's already been a citizen.
Okay, so rather than Jake rambling on and bragging about Palm Beach, Helder, what kind of an impact do you think this is going to have on the campaign, right? Because you're going to be on the ground floor nationally, but for us here in Florida, what kind of an impact do you see this having on what the campaign's going to look like here, that now this is his home state?
Locks it up, baby. Come home.
I mean, that's what we're saying. Look, at the end of the day, Trump has for quite some time expressed his deep love for this state. he kicked off his re-election campaign literally in Orlando. And if that's not telling you that he's not only watching Florida as a valuable state, because we know it is, it's super important. You know, he won by over 100,000 votes. Nobody thought that was going to happen. You know, we're shooting for 200,000 plus this time around, even more. You know, the Latinos for Trump part under the umbrella also kicked off here in the state as well. They just had an event in Orlando. You know, I've been here for the past few days in Tampa. We're hitting the state pretty hard, but the fact that the president is making his, you know, residency here, like we said, it's not a surprise, I think, in a lot of ways for a lot of people. He absolutely loves Florida. I think he sees, I think, in a lot of ways, the fact that, you know, people here have been incredibly welcoming.
Yes.
And just even before, if we think of, you know, everything from, you know, Governor Scott now to DeSantis, you know, the governors have been doing a very good, both of them at this point have done a really good job of making Florida a business-friendly state, making it good for families, making it good to start businesses, making it good to relocate to. And so what's happening, obviously, you know, you have millions and millions of people moving here, but they're moving here because of all these really great opportunities. And I think the president's move to say, you know what, like, for a guy that obviously was in Home Alone, you know, so many years ago, and, you know, clearly, you know, was an icon on Fifth Avenue for so long, the fact that he's moving to Florida not only just says Florida is an important state, which we know it is, but it says, you know what, I want to go to a place that I actually want to live in.
As long as he doesn't shut down Palm Beach International Airport, which is something he wanted to do because they were flying over Mar-a-Lago, I am happy to
that
have
I don't know
him.
about.
I am happy to have him as a resident.
Well, now that's practically his personal airport now at this point.
But I think to the point that was being made about, you know, what does this mean for Florida? Like I said, once again, we already have, you know, in the dozens, almost hundreds of staffers in the state. We have thousands of trained volunteers. We're going to be out there knocking doors. We've already knocked thousands of doors. We've already registered thousands of voters. I mean, these are things that are already happening, and we're registering Republicans. We're out there. We're doing the work. It is obviously going to help that this is going to be, you know, hopefully more of a home base for the president. And people here, you know, Floridians love turning out for these rallies.
Yes.
And so if the president can do Pensacola, you know, Orlando, Tampa, and Miami, and then get to be in his own bed, that's like the best thing in the world for him. And I think Floridians are going to respond very positively.
Yeah,
But I would imagine that amps up the pressure for the staff here in Florida to make sure that we win.
It definitely does. I mean, like, you need to see it at each one of the local levels and at the county level, and make sure that our state Republican Party is all on the same page.
Are we even going to touch that?
No,
right
we're
now?
not. And I want to thank. I think I want to thank. You know, I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And giving us, because we do probably need to wrap it up. We're probably a little bit over our time, which is
Sorry
what
about
happens.
that.
Which is what happens every time we don't have one of the girls on the show. The girls keep us on track and on our 1 hour mark. I will tell you that for sure.
The girls do their job. They do exactly what they need to do.
Well, and they're making jobs. So,
yeah,
you know,
and they're making
that's what it
jobs.
is.
They're all working. That's why.
That's right. That is why.
That's really bad for us.
So I anyway, John, you want to wrap this one up for us? We're doing a bad job here.
All right, so final words, anyone? Announcements?
Yeah, I do actually. I do have an announcement. I want to thank everybody that came out to the. We didn't have a show last week because we had the Tampa Young Republicans monthly meeting, which more people should come out and attend. If you watch this podcast, we know we see the numbers online. You're there. You're watching. Just come out to the meetings too.
Yeah.
We had a great meeting with a bunch of the city council from Tampa. So I want to thank Bill Carlson. I want to thank Guido Maniscalco, and I want to thank Luis Vieira. Again, all registered Democrats who came out, spoke with us, heard our voices very loudly on specific issues, and we had a great conversation.
By the way, that's former Young Republican Guido Maniscalco.
I wasn't going to put that out there. I'm not putting anything like that out there. John,
I'll call him out.
Shots fired.
I do all the time.
Anyway, so I want to thank all of them for coming out, and we probably are going to have Lewis on the show at some point to come talk about some of the issues and things he's brought up at a local level.
Yes,
and
we will.
And so again, I want to thank them. And moving forward, I just pay attention to the yard sign and the Tampa Young Republicans and what we're doing, because we're going to probably throw a pretty awesome Christmas party at some point. It's going to benefit charity, and the details will be coming for that as well.
Yeah,
soon.
all the other Republican clubs in Hillsborough County have been asking us when we're going to throw our party. So then, one, they don't get competition, and two, they can crash. So that's something that's happening right now. Shout outs to RWF. They are meeting at the Besito restaurant right now.
Republican Women's Federation.
Yes. And they're having a great time there, but we went and said hi to them earlier, and they're all making comments about how they watch us after they get home. They open a bottle of wine, and they sit down and watch us on their computers. So shout out to them. Also, shout out to USF College Republicans. I know that a few of you guys are watching also, so thanks so much for supporting us. And come to our meetings. It'll be great to see you guys.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you again for watching The Yard Sign. Again, you can find us here on Facebook, The Yard Sign. You can also find us on YouTube by searching The Yard Sign, and on Twitter at The Yard Sign. Thank you again to Helder Toste for being our first national guest on the show, and a great representation for the Trump campaign coming up in 2020. Of course, we're going to be keeping you updated not only in the Democrat primary as that continues to collapse in a beautiful way, but also as the Trump campaign continues to ramp up. Hopefully we'll have Helder come back, and we'll also have other representatives, not only from the Trump campaign, but all the other Republican campaigns that are happening, not only here locally, but statewide and nationally. So we appreciate you watching The Yard Sign. Thank you so much. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, comment. All right, all that stuff helps get the show out. We really appreciate you, and we'll see you back here again next Monday, 7 o'clock-ish, right?
It was all on you there.
If you only knew what I dealt with. All right. Thank you so much for watching, everybody.
Only knew.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.